Hello everyone, welcome back again. My name is Jesse, and in this wonderful and exciting tutorial, we're trying to build a very simple application using Python and Django and then vector database. So we're building a simple system that is used for course recommendation. So let's see what we're building. So if I come back here, we can search for a particular course. So I can search for, let's say, Python. If I click on search Python, you can see that we have a list of all the courses from my database that have Python within them, right? So Python algo trading, Python for stock analysis and stuff. Perfect. If I click on this, it's going to send me to this particular place that gives me the course ID, the price, the level, and then some information. Perfect. That is one part of the app, right? And you can see that it automatically highlights them. So if I check for something like say pandas, there's nothing like pandas there. Let's try JavaScript, and now you see that we have all the courses that have JavaScript within them, and it's very fast, right? Perfect. That is one part of the app. The other side of the app is that if I go back to the recommender, it will be using a vector database to search instead of the normal SQL database. So if I go back here and I check for something like, say, artificial intelligence, it's going to give me all the courses within my database that have a word similar, right, in meaning to artificial intelligence. So you see that we have the intelligent investor, creating trading robots without coding skills, right, and then real world learning, right, something similar. And you can see the score. If I try something different, so let's try something like Python. You can see that it's giving us all the courses that have Python. So Python for beginners, Python web programming, and then Python for trading. If I try something different, like let's say business analysis, so business analysis, financial analysis, and you can see that there is business analysis here, fine, but here the term business analysis is nowhere to be found, but it is similar in meaning, right, with financial analysis. That's why it's showing it here. So this is another way we can use vector databases via cosine similarity search to build a recommender system. So that is something that you're trying to build in this wonderful tutorial. So what you are doing is that you're trying to see how to build a recommender system using vector database. So the application has two aspects. It has the search feature that when the person searches, as we saw, it will search directly via the SQL database, right? And there's also another option in which if the person search via the recommend option, it will search not via the SQL database, but to be searching from the vector database using Quadrant. You can also use ChromaDB or Melvos or Pinecone. And this is using cosine similarity search, right? Which is quite useful. So we're trying to see how to build this wonderful application. And this idea of the vector database can be used in many ways, even for large language model application. So let's see how to build this from scratch. So we are building it on Django, and Django is MVT model view template. So we're trying to see the different steps, and at the end you're going to see how to build it, right? So let's start from scratch. So this is what was built. I'll stop this for the old one, and this is the old one, and I'll move into this place. I'm going to create a directory called, let's create a directory here, and I'm going to call it as my recommender project, something like this. Move into recommender project. Let's create a virtual environment, virtual env. Let's stop this. This is the old one, so it exists, right? So I'm going to create a virtual environment, and then if I come back here, I can now activate it. Script activate. Then I can just go with pip install Django. That is the first thing we are using, and we also need to install the things that we need for the vector database. So Django, and then we also install Quadrant client. You can also use ChromaDB, right? Okay, Quadrant, and then we also need to install sentence transformers. So we are installing sentence transformers to help us with our vectorization to create our word embeddings. Okay, so let me install it. So whilst it's installing, we will start building our project, right? So it's taking some time for it to install. let's not make it layered, let's split it beside it, right, to the right here. So you're building a project, a simple application from scratch. So apologies for all the errors that is going to happen, and then I hope you enjoy this. Okay, so let's start with what to be building. So first we will start with the application, and then we start with the model first, right, and then you move on to the view and then the template. Okay, let's finish. Let's edit from here. So it is finishing, and if I come back here, we have nothing. So let me activate this script, activate. Whilst it's taking some time, we will continue from there, right? It's taking some time for it to run. Okay, so the idea behind the vector database is like this. We have our test. So let me bring it here. The idea behind the vector database and what we are trying to do is that we have some test, right, which is going to be our test, and then we are going to pass our encoder, which is going to be our sentence transformer, right, model, which will be used to convert these things into word embeddings, right? Embeddings. So that is what you're trying to do. So we have our test, which is going to be our data, and then we are going to pass data via into our transformer model, and then I'm going to generate some word embeddings, right? And it is with this word embeddings that we'll be searching. So we'll be searching here, right? This is where we'll be searching for. That is what you're trying to do. And then we will store the word embeddings, right, together with whatever we are storing inside our vector database, and then we can search through our vector database. So I think by now it's taking some time. Yeah. So I hope now that's finished. So Django, to start, just going to go with Django. Yeah, that's finished now. Yeah, perfect. So since that's finished, I'm just going to go with Django admin. Then let's start project. So I'm going to call it as rec project, so that we differentiate between that one and the application. And then you see that I just created a directory called rec project. I'll move into my rec project. Then you can see we have my manage.py. So the manage.py is going to be used to manage the application, right? So Python manage.py, then I can call it as start app, right? And I can just give it as my recommender. It's going to create another app within it. So if I go back and I check it out, you see that we have my recommender, and I'll use VS Code. You can also use PyCharm to make our work easy, but most people prefer VS Code, so let's go with VS Code. Okay, perfect. So now we are back. We have our project, right? That is the project itself, and we have our recommender. So what I'll do is that once you start that, you have to go back to your settings and then include your app here, the recommender app here. So go back to your installed app. That is the first thing. So the installed app is all the different applications that we are going to be working with, right? You have to include it here, so that Django knows that this start app, this recommender app you created, is recognized by the application. So recommender, and once you have installed it, you have added to the installed app, the Django begins to recognize it. Perfect. Let's go from here to our URLs, and then we need to also let the URLs also know that we have a package like that. So that is going to be my path. Then this will go with this option here. Then we need to include my app that I created, which was my recommender.urls. So we need to create a URLs for this. So let's import include from here. Perfect. So this is going to allow us to see the app and to see the URLs that come from the app. So let's go and create this URLs. Yeah, so I'll go back to my recommender, which is here, and then I'll create inside my recommender, I'll create my URLs file. Views.py, right, which is what we are referring to here. Perfect. So what I'll do is that I'll copy this entire stuff here, and then I'll paste it here, and I'll take off the include. I'll take off this, right, and I need to specify that, okay, this is going to be our first route, and then I'll specify the route. So the route is going to be it's going to come from someplace. So where is the route going to come from? So we have, that is where the view comes. So the view is used to control the entire application, right? That is the logic of it. The logic can also be inside the models, right? But it can also be inside services, but let's keep it simple. So I'll go back to my views, that is my view here, and then I'm going to create my first logic place. So index view, which is my index page, it takes in the request, and then it takes in some context. So the context is where your data is going to be, the data that you want to send to your template, which in this case our own is going to be our title, and then we can call it as recommender app, right, something like that, and then return render request, then it takes in template. So this template is referring to the templating system that we will use to render whatever is coming from the view, right? So we can just call it as index.html, which we will create later, and then my context, right? So the data for my logic will be sent to my index.html as my template, right? That's my template. So we need to create this. So to create this, we will just go to the same location as my app, which is here. Then I'm going to create a folder called templates. Then inside my template, I'll create my index.html, so that Django will know where all my templates are. All the templates will be found, all the templating that will be done will be found inside my template here. Perfect. Now, how do we connect to the URLs? We just come back here, then from import views. So the dot means the current location, which is here. I want to import views, which is this views. Then when I'm inside this view, I want to get this particular function called index view. So I'll go back here, then I'm going to say my views dot index view. Then I will just give it a name. Let's call it as home. That is it, right? So that is how to connect everything together. So we have connected our routes to our views. So how do we run it? So perfect, everything is working. Let's see if everything is working. So I'm just going to create my HTML. Let's use HTML5. We have HTML5, and then I'll just pass in my title here. So how do we render it? So this is the Ginger template, which is going to take in the title that we had. We can also make it like this. Let's go h2 tag. This is the mustache Ginger template title. Perfect. Right. So this is going to render. It's going to render whatever thing that is here. So this is what we are referring here. It's like a dictionary. This is going to be like the key, and then this is going to be the value. So this is going to replace what is here, right? So let's run it. So how do you run the entire stuff? So I'll go back to here, same location, then I run Python manage.py run server. So I go with this, it's going to tell me that so there are some migrations that have not been applied, and these migrations are what is used by my database, right, to manage all the data there that is coming from the model and coming from the application. So the migrations will be done for the SQL database here. So let's open this and see what you have done. So I'll copy this and I will open it here. You can see that we see the recommender app here. So that is the theme. Let me position it beside it. That is the theme. So the recommender app is the theme, right, that was typed on the views here, right? So if I change this to recommender apps and I save it, I refresh, so now it is recommender apps, right? Perfect. So let's close the URLs. Yeah, done with that. The main URLs, the settings, and now we are done. So we have the two, so this one and then this one. Now let's move on to the models, which is very important. So the models is going to be the MVT, which is going to be the data structure. So how do we do that? I'm going to go with that class. We have our data that you want to use. So the data we'll be using is which is coming from the previous application, which is here. Let's go here. So this is our data. So I'll copy this data and then I'll paste it here to save us time inside my rec location here. I'll paste in the same location as we have my money.py, and this is the data we are trying to use. So if I go back to yeah, you can see what I was watching. Yeah, okay. So the data we are using is this particular data set. So we have the course ID, we have the course title, the URL, the ISP, the price, the number of subscribers, and this course title is what will be vectorizing, right? That's what we'll be trying to be passing here, as we mentioned. You pass in the course ID here. This is going to be our course title, right? And then you pass the transform model on top of it to get our word embeddings, and that is what we'll be searching from. So we are converting that course title and then all of these things, all these columns, to a Django model to put inside our database. Okay, so let's see how to do that. So today I'll just go back here and then I'll just create it. So I'll call it as course, and this one takes in my models.model, and then it will take in the course ID. So the reason we are using a course ID is that we have a course ID here, which is different from the ID of the model itself. So that is what we are going to be specifying, and this is going to go with my models.character field. It can be integer field, but let's call it as integer field, right? And then you just pass in the particular namespace that you have. You can put in the max length. So the max length must be the length that you want it to be. So that is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, this is like 9. We can make it 11 or 12. Right, and then you can specify like a blank is equal to true, and then null is equal to true, right? And then you can also do the same thing. So course title, then models.character field, then do the same. So max length 2255, then blank is equal to true, null is equal to true. So we can do the same thing for the rest of them, right? So to save us time, I'll copy the other one from the previous project we did, or the actual project, the one that I demoed, to save us time, because it's going to be too much copying, too much typing. Okay, so I'll just copy that one from here, which is this one, right? Yeah, this one. So I'll copy this and then I'll explain it, right? The same thing that we are doing. So copy this one and paste it here. Okay, perfect. So what we are doing is that we have some part of them which is for the levels, right? So levels and then the subject, and then we are creating for all of these headers their representation, so we can represent them in the model, like the schema. Can represent them in the database, rather. So you see we have all of them here, and then the publish date, publish timestamp. This is character field. Inside here we have it as datetime, but it's in string. So we want to get it as the string and then convert them to datetime. That is why we are now using this particular function. So this is actually a property, not a function, not a method, right? Because there's not taking any parameter. Perfect. So now we're going to call this to convert it into datetime object. Perfect. Now, how do we connect them together? So to connect them, I'll just go back to my admin. Then I'm going to register them here. So I'm going to go with from .models, import my course, and then I need to register it. So admin.site.register. The reason we do this is to allow us to see it in the admin session, right? So we are registering it in the admin part of the application so that the admin can actually see what is there. Okay, so how do we connect them together? Right. So we can do that by going back to here. Remember that we had this 18 unapplied migrations. So once I run it, if you check the migrations here, this folder, there's nothing here. But the moment I run the migrations, we are going to see some migration files created, and then this place populated with some files, right? Which is going to be used to migrate our data to our database. So let's run it here. So I'll go back to rec project, same location that we have my my.py, Python my.py. Then I can call make migrations. And now it says I just created a file called 001 initial create model course. If I check it here, this is the place. So we have the initial. If I check, it has a migration class file which contains information of how the model or Django, the ORM, is going to use to construct the SQL to create our structure for our database, right? So you can see that we have create model, we have the course, we have the different fields, and all of these fields are the same fields we defined here, right? The same thing. So this is how Django will understand it. The ORM will construct all the information from this, and then it will be used for our database. So you can use any database, Postgres, SQLite, MySQL server, and this database agnostic, right? Very cool. Okay, perfect. So we are done with it. And now how does it see it? You can now just go back again, and then let's run it again. Let's call that migrate. Migrate, that's created all of these things. So where are all of this coming from? These are coming from the different apps we had. So Django automatically has its own. So if we go back to, if I close all of this and I go back to my settings, we had some apps here. So all these apps have their own migration files that it has to be worked on. That is why we have them here. So you can see that we have the auth, we have the content type, we have the admin and the auth, and this is it. So all the one for the auth, or the one for the content types, or the one for the sessions, together with the one that we added here, right? You can see that it's showing all here. Perfect. That is cool. Now there's also one thing that is used to track all of these things inside Django, which we will learn later on in the future. Okay, perfect. Now let's see how to see our data, right? So I'll go back to we are still on our model. We're still on the M aspect of the application, which is this one. I don't know whether I can see it. We're still on the M, right? So we want to be able to show some of the data inside our template. How do we do that? We simply go back to here. We will close all this. We don't need them. I'll go back to my views, which is here. Then I'm going to import. So from my models, import my course, and I want to show some data there. So to show some data, I can just create my course, which is going to be my course.objects.all. This is going to query and return every data there. And now I can send this particular data, just courses, to my template from my front end. So I'll just go back here, and then to see everything, there are two ways. The first one is what we saw. There's also another way which we can loop through the data, which is using this statement. So every state, if it's a statement that can be executed, we just go with this particular format, right? So for, let's say, item in my courses, right? And then I'll just go with the other one. This is used to render item dot course title. This course title is coming from the course title we had, which is coming from this name here, right? Perfect. So, and then I'll just close it with N4. Let's save it, right? Now if I run it, you can see that we had a line, but we couldn't see anything here, right? So the reason we could not see anything is that we don't have any data within our database. We don't have any data there. It's empty, right? It is empty. There's nothing there. So how do we push our data there? So now we are going to do a simple thing to help us push the data there. So I'll go back to my recommender file. Inside this place, I'm going to create, inside the recommender app, I'll create a directory which is going to be called management. That is the name by convention. Management. Manage, how do you spell management? Yeah. And then inside management, I'm going to create a file called __init __.py because it's a package. Then inside the same place, I'm going to create another directory called commands. Right, so commands, that are the commands that I want to run, and I will create two files to make it a package, and then another file called import courses.py. So inside my import courses.py is where I'm going to place in my function to populate or to convert everything coming from my CSV file to my courses, right? So I already have the function. Then I will explain to save us time. So the structure is management, commands. Then inside commands we have this, right? So this is how it is. So I'll copy this one to save us time, and then I'll explain. So what this one is doing is that we are just importing the base command, which is used to create Django management commands. That's what you are using it for, right? And then we have pandas, which is going to be used to load our CSV file. So we have to go back to our location here and install pandas. So pip install pandas because we don't have pandas. Yeah, and then we use pandas to load our CSV file, right? And then we will run. So we have created from the base command, we are inheriting it. We're creating another command, and we are adding an argument. This is from parser. I have a course that you can check below on how to work with it, how to put CLIs. And what we are doing that we are specifying that, okay, we are telling Django to look inside our app model, which is this, our app here called recommender. Pick the model called courses from our courses model. So get model called course, and store it inside this variable. Then going to open our CSV file. We're going to convert everything into a record, right? A dictionary of records. Then you're going to loop through each part of the dictionary, the key and the value, and then assign them to their respective field. Then you are going to bulk create all of them, and this is going to import data. So if everything is working well, we will see this finished importing data, and then we will see our data populated, right? So let's save this one, and the name is import courses. That must be the name of the file, and that's the name of the command we are going to be running, which is manage.py import courses. So I'll go back to here, which is just finished. Then the same location as we have my manage.py is where I have my demo courses CSV file. Then if I run manage.py, you can see that we have different commands there. So all these commands that we are seeing, this is how to create it. And this is how Django created this, right? So Django has its own there, and the one we created has been added in the same format. So these are the ones from Django. So we saw migrate, we saw make migration, we saw run server, right? Yeah. And the one that we created recently was called import courses, which is found inside the recommender folder, right? The one we added. Now to run this one, we just go with, if I want to run this, I'll just go with my Python, manage.py, run, right, import courses, then dash path, then I'll pass in my Udemy course, right? So if everything works on, it's going to tell me that imported data, right? Finished. And now if I go back here, and once I refresh it, you can see that we have the data there. Very cool. So this is one of the ways you can import data to your application. A very simple way. You can keep this management command and use it for different applications. All you have to do is have to align this one well to your model, right? There are also Django extensions that can be used to do that, but I prefer this one. Okay, perfect. So we have seen how to populate our database with data. Now let's do some interesting things. So what we're doing now is we are now going to go with the session via MySQL database. Okay, so how do we do that? So simply, we have already imported it, we have looped through them. Now to be able to search through that, we have to, there are several ways you can do that. The simplest way is to use Django filters. So I go back and I need to import it. So pip install Django filter, that's the name of the package, filter, and then I'll come back to my settings. Then I have to add it here. So this is going to be my third-party packages or apps, which in this case is going to be my Django filter. I don't know whether it's filter or filters. Yeah, let's see. If I save it, hopefully it doesn't give us, there's an error here, so it's supposed to be filters. Yeah, perfect. So it is filters. The package name is called filter, and everything is filters, plural. Okay. So how do we work with that? So I'll just go back, close this one here, close the management so that we see it clean. Inside the recommender, which is the app directory, I'm going to create a file called my filters.py. That's what I'm going to put in my filter. So it's going to be my import Django filters. Then we can also go with from Django, can't spell Django, Django filters. I want to import my character filter, right, to help us with that. Then let's create our first filter. So I'll call it as my course filter, which takes in the Django filters.filter set. Then it takes a class meta, and here I'll specify the particular model that I want to search from, which in our case is my course model, which I have to import from above. So from .models import course, and we also have to specify the fields we want to search. So our fields, I think it's fields that I want to search is my course title. So that is where I want to search, right? Perfect. Now we have created our course filter. How do we use it? So the course filter is going to come out like a form together with some search functionalities. So to use it, I'll go back here and then I'll specify that, okay, I want to get it. So it's going to be from .filters import my course filter. Then how do I use it? I just have to specify that I want to use that one for my filtering, right? So I'll just specify that, okay, let's go to search filter, which is going to be my course filter that I have. Then this course filter is going to take in a request .get, which will work on it later, and then the query set. The query set is going to be my courses right? This one this we imported, right? This is the query set. We are passing inside there. So that means that all the data that you are getting from here, all of this is being passed through this course filter so that we can search it, because it's now going to filter it. And then we are going to get a query set. So let's call this my courses again. And this is going to be my search filter.query set, right? And it's with this I'll now send here, right? And then search from that. Okay, so let's work on this one here. So we have it here. Now how do we see it? I also have to send the search filter, because I also want to get the form to filter. So search filter, and this is going to be my search filter here. So since we are passing it into the context, we'll go back to our index.html here, and then let's create a form. So I'll create a div and I'll create a form, and this form is going to take no action, but the method is going to be get. This get method is the method we are referring to here, right? Request.get. Okay, now we need a button. This button is going to be of a type of submit, and let's call this one as search. So if I refresh this, you're going to see the button, but we have not gotten the input session. So that's where our filter comes inside, which is going to be my search filter, right? And this search filter is coming from here, our course filter, right? So if I refresh it, so we're having some object here, right? The reason we have an object is that we have to render it. So to render this, we just go with as form, right? And now if I refresh it, we have my form. Very cool. With the course title, and this course title is coming from here, because we specify that we want to search by the course title. So now if I go back here and I search for, say, ultimate banking course, so let's copy this and then let's pass it here. If I search, only that one is coming. This time is an exact search, right? So because an exact search, if I take off the banking course, it's not going to work, right? The reason not working is that it is an exact search. So how do we fix it? So first, I'll go back here and then I want to specify that if it doesn't give us a result, I want to, if it's not found, I want to just print empty. So I think it's empty. Then I'll just say p tag not found, right? So that if I go back here and I refresh it, not found, right? Whatever you search for was not found. Very cool. This is better. How do you make it not an exact search, but a general search, right? A character search. So you can just go back here, and then we have the character filter, which allows us to filter the entire stuff by character. And I can just go back and specify that, okay, let's call it as course title, which is mostly the same name as the one you want to specify here. Then I'll specify that, okay, I want to do some character filtering, which is going to be my character filter. So I want to filter that particular field, right, per my character filter. So something like this. You can just go with this. Then I'll just pass in my lookup. So lookup expression is going to be, by default, it is I exact, right? That is by default. So by default it's I exact, and if I go back, it's not going to give us a result because it is I exact, and then it comes. But in case I want to search across, right, I can just go with I contains. Now I contains, it's going to return it. If it has some partial words there, it's still going to return it. If I pass in the word like, let's say, course, that all the terms that have course, so we have course here, there is course here, there is course here, right? It's going to filter them and show it to us in a very nice way. Cool. that is how to filter. So this kind of filtering, this kind of search is all through the database, right? It's all through here. It's not through any other place. It's just searching directly via the database. You can use Django. There's a package called Django extensions, and another package extensions, and there's another package called Django debug toolbar that can help you see the queries that are being generated, right? Which you can also work on it later on. If you're interested, let me know. Okay, so that is good, but this is not nice. How do we make it user friendly? So I'm going to make this one into a table, so we can actually convert this entire stuff into a table. And before we convert it to a table, it is not nice. It is too much data here, right? Right. Too much data here. How do we reduce it? That is where pagination comes in. So let's see how to paginate this. So to paginate this, we just go back here, and then we are going to import. Django has you covered, right? Django is very cool. So we're going to go with my Django. Then there is also the option of paginator, anyhow you pronounce it, paginator. So from django.core.paginator, import paginator. Then we are going to paginate the entire data, right? So what we are doing is that first we had our data, right? And then we pass this particular data into our filter as a query set. And now what we want to do is that we are also going to pass this filter into our paginator. So it's like this way. So we have our data from the model, we are passing through the filter, and then we are passing the filter through the paginator, right? And then we are going to send this paginator to our template, to our template, so that if the person search, it's going through this way. And because we are passing through paginator, we can have multiple pages. So we can have, let's say, let's make it this way. We can have multiple pages. So we can have, let's say, page 1, page 2, right, and the rest. So that's what we are trying to do here with the paginator, and that is quite useful, right? But anytime we search, it goes through this option. So let's see how to implement that. So I'll go back here, and as I said, we have the cost, the data, which is the data. Then we have our filter and the query set. Then we need to pass this one into our paginator, right? So paginator is going to be my paginator, and this one goes with the courses, and then you can specify how many. So I want to just show 25. Then we also need to specify the page number so that the person can limit it, which is going to be my request.get. Then we want to get the page as the query parameter. Then now we can just go with my page object, which is going to be the paginator.get page. Then you pass in my page number. That is it. And now I can send the page object. Page object, right, which is going to be my page object. Perfect, that is all. So now I will replace this page object with my search. So instead of searching through the courses, now I'll be searching through the page object, and it's still going to work. So now if I run it, search now is going to be reduced, and now it is quite few, right, because it's 25. Perfect. Let's make it a table, and then let's put the pagination there. and then we move on from there. So I'll just copy the one from the other one to save us time, because yeah, we don't want to talk back here to the index.html just to copy the table here, which is this. We will work on it later. I'm just copying the table, yeah, and then the span, right? Copy this. So this thing is what I'm simplifying this entire stuff. Let me hide it. Perfect. So what we are trying to do is that the same thing we have, this is not needed yet. The same thing we had is what we have here. So this is the old one. So now if I refresh, it's in a nice table. So it's giving us this error here, which we will also have to fix. Now if I refresh it, we have it here, right? So this is now a nice table which has all the columns there, and you can see the pagination here. So I go to last, so there's the last page, first, and you can see it's changing here. So this is page number 1. It's referring to this one we had here, right? This one. So it's picking it from here. So if I change it to, let's say, page number 4, it's changing, and see that it's page 4 here, right? That's the idea behind this. Okay, now let's work on this option here. So how do you work on this? So to work on it is very simple. All we need to do is that we need to go back to my index, and we also need to create a route for that. So def, and I'll call that read course, which is going to take in the request and then the primary key. And then I'm just going to specify the course, which is going to be singular course. So course.get.object.get. Then the ID is going to be my primary key. Then we can now specify the context, which is going to be my course, then the singular course. Then we can now return render request, because we are passing it via request response. Then I have to create a read course.html template, and I'll pass in my context. Perfect. So let's create this to show whatever is being sent there. So I'll go back to my template. Then I'll, inside my template here, I'll create my read course.html, which is going to take my course description. Right? So let's go as div. We can now pass in my course. So this is going to be course title, and then we can also do another one. So let's make it L1, so UL, and then L1, something like that. And I'll pass this one here. Later on we can beautify it, it depends upon you, but I just want to show the stuff. So we have the course title, we had the course ID, we had the course say course, the price, and the rest, right? The different ones we have, so price, subject, and the blah blah blah. Perfect. And this course is coming from here, right? Perfect. Let's save it. Now how do we link it? To link it, we have to send this view to our URLs so that our URL sees it. So I'll just go back here, then path, which is going to be my read course. Then I'll give it this option here, so to take the string, and then my primary key. Then I can just pass in my views dot read course. Then let's give it a name. Let's go as read. Perfect. Right, so let's link this one. So I'll go back here to this place, to this particular button, and I can now paste in just here. Perfect, right? So we are creating a URL. This is how to get links, and this read is referring to this read here, and then the link is to this particular link. So let's save it. Now if I click on this one, so let's see. So now we have it here, right? So what finance job is for you? Explanation of 14 finance roles, and you can see that it's here, right? But we can make it better and nicer. If I go back and I choose something different, so let's choose Python. You have it here. Click on it. So we have it here. You can make it beautiful and more nicer. Perfect. So you have seen how to still work on the search. All the search is via our SQL database. How do we add the highlighter to it, right? Because from what we have, if I search for Python, there's Python here, there's Python here. How do you highlight it? This can be done if I go with Control F and I search for Python, right? You can see that my editor, my browser, not my editor, highlight automatically all of this. How do we implement the same thing inside our database, right? In which we highlight all the words there. How do we do that? So let's see how to do that. So to do that, it's very simple. What you'll be doing is that what this thing is doing. So if I go with Control F, what it's doing is taking some text, right? And then it's putting a span of some color around that particular text. Then it's continuing the rest. So in short, what it is doing is this. Let's go up. What it's doing is this. It's taking my span, right? And then it's picking that particular value that we are searching for, like Python. Then it's putting around that particular value. So it's the entire stuff, and it's putting a span with a particular color there, a particular class, let's say of highlight, right? And this highlight will have some color there. So this is all that it's doing. You are just taking the entire text, and then you are searching for Python. You're going to replace the Python with this value here, right? And then put the span around it. So that is how we can implement the highlight. So how will you do that? So I'll just copy this, and then I'll go back to my location, purchase the same place as my app here, and then I'm going to create a folder called TemplateTags. So TemplateTags, right? And I'll do the same thing. I'll create it's a package, so init.py. Then I need to create in my file. So I'll create another file, which is, I'll call it as, let's say, customizers.py. It can be any name. And here is where I'll put my logic, right? So what I'm doing is that the idea for the template tags is very simple. What I'm trying to do is that I'm just going to create a function. So from Django, import template, and then I also want to import regular expression to make it more performant. Then from Django.utils.safe string import make safe. Then I need to register. So this register is going to help us manipulate our template. So template.library. Yeah. And now let's see. So the function is quite simple. The simplest one is like this. I'll call it as highlight search. And this highlight search function takes in my text and then the search term, right? Whatever term I'm typing here. And then the text is the entire text. Then what we are doing is that we are going to just take the highlighted, say, we are going to take the text, convert it to string, and then replace the search term, right? Wherever we're going to find it, we are going to replace the search term with my value. So f string, let's go with here, with this. So the span that we had, so now we are going to be replacing that particular search term that we had with the span. So that's all we are doing. So we are just identifying that particular string that we had, and then we are just finding it, find and replace it with this, and then we are going to return this back. So let's call it as highlighted. Then we can now return MaxSafe because we want to keep it safe, highlighted. So that is all we are doing. This is one of the ways, right? So this is one of the ways we can do it, but we can make it, this is okay, but we can make it more performant by going this option, which is def, same thing, highlight, search, and this is going to take the same thing we call, let's give it a name. We can call it as test, then search term, same thing, right? And then what I'm doing is I'm going to say that if test is not none, I want you to take the test and I want you to convert it to a string, right? Yeah, it seems tautology, but, and then I'm also going to create my source string, which is going to be my pattern. So compile, and this is going to take in the search term. Then I need to ignore, so ignore case. So whether it is uppercase, lowercase, I want to ignore them. Perfect. Then I'm going to replace, so string replaced. It's going to be the same thing we did, something similar. Then I'll go with substitute because here is a regular expression. Then I'll pass in the same thing we did here, similar. I'll pass in this. So substitute any place you find the search term with from my test, right? And then else, if it is not none, get the string replaced and then return it back, and then we can now return MaxSafe, which is my string replaced, right? So the same thing we have done above, the simplest one, and this is the more performant one, right? So irrespective, this is okay, but because we are not using ignore case, it will be very specific, right? But this is going to ignore whether it's uppercase or smaller case, right? And then because if you use the first one to only highlight, it will find out terms, but it will highlight per the case. So if it's this way, only this, it's going to ignore the smaller case, but this is going to be very performant, ignore every one of them. So let's test our function so we know that it's actually working. Okay, so how do we convert this one? So to do that, let me call it as 1, and this one is the performant one, so we will have to decorate it. So register dot filter, and then we do the same thing here, right? You will test them so you see the difference. Okay, so let's see how to use it. So how do we use this? The name is customized, so to use it we will just go back to my index.html file, and at the top of my file I need to load it. So we load it with load, then the name customizes, right? So the name must be the same name as the name of the file, right? Perfect. And we need to define the color for this, right? So we have to use a class. So we have to go back here, and inside my body, it can be inside the body or it can be inside the head, anywhere it is, I need to define my style, which is going to be my dot highlight, and this I'll just give it as a background color of, let's say, yellow, right? So this highlight refers to the highlight here, right? Okay, and then how do we use it? So to use it, we need to first be able to retrieve what is being searched here, which is whatever is being searched here, right? So how do we retrieve it? So I have to go back here, and then if I right click on this and go to inspect, you can see that inside my input type, the name is called course title, right? So this course title is coming from my filter here, this particular name, right? So we need to pick this, fetch this, and whatever is typed here is attached to this name here. So we need to fetch this. So I'll copy this, and then I'll go back to my views where the logic is, and as they go, so we have the data, we have my filter, we need to retrieve that one also. We need to also retrieve the how do we call it? We also need to retrieve the actual data, right? That's what I mean. So how do we do that? So I'll just paste it here. Let's paste it here, which is going to be my, I'll call it as my search term, which in our case, the search term is going to be request.get, right? And then the name was course title, and then we're going to say, okay, either course title or empty. So this one refers to the name is equal to course title, right? That we had here. So once we find a particular term, we want to send the term again to the front end, right? Because the highlighting is not occurring from the back end, it's occurring here on the front end, right? So I'll just paste this one here and paste it here. So I'm going to send the search term to the front end. So I'll go back to my index, and then I'll come back to whatever I'm searching for. So this is here. So focus in page object. I'll pass it on my title because that's what I'm searching for. Then I'll pass in my filter. So backslash, then my highlight search. So this highlight search is coming from customizers, which is this particular registered filter, right? So let's see the first one, the second one, the more performant one. So I'll save it here, and then I need to tell it the search, right? So it's going to pick this term, and anytime it meets that particular search term, it's going to highlight it out of our entire stuff. So let's try it. So I'll close this one off. Hopefully it works. So if I search, it's telling us, okay, invalid filter, highlight search, right? So why is it failing? So one of the things that it can happen is how this is being retrieved here. That's just why it's failing. So it's highlight search. You have to make sure that the naming and everything is correct, because sometimes it can happen. I remember when I was doing it, it was like I was thinking, what was I doing wrong? So you have to make sure that it's correct. So highlight search, this name must be the same name as we have here. So I have to make sure that, see, that's just one of the things happen. So it's, I call it height light. That's why it's failing. It's not seeing it. So it's highlight search. So the name must match. So let's refresh, and then voila, right? So it's working. So let's search for, say, algo. So now it is highlighting it. That is how to work with the highlight search. Perfect. Let's try the other one. So this was the search one. If I try the search one, I'm going to see the difference between them. So let's see the, go back to my index here, and let's call search one, and let's refresh, and you can see that it's highlighting them. But if I pick a word like, let's say, trading, right, there is trading capital here, and there is trading small letter here. Let's pick it and see. If I go with trading, you see that it could not even find it. Right? I don't know why I could not find it anyway. Yeah, it's not performant. Maybe I made a mistake. See that now it's finding it. So that is why I prefer this method, this ignore case, over this one, because with this one here it is very, very strict, right? So even if it doesn't find it, there is trading in some places, but it couldn't find it. It just find only the same type. So if I type trade, it can't find it, but there is trading here. This is trading, but it's not finding it, right? So that is why we are using the regular expression one. So let's go back to regular expression. And now if I run it, both the small case and then the other case have been highlighted. Where is it? Yeah. Right, all of them will be highlighted. Okay, perfect. So now let's see, we're done with the search. We are done with the search via SQL. So let's see how to do the same thing for the vector databases, right? So how do we do that? So should we break and start, or we should continue? Okay, let's see how to continue that, right? Okay, so we'll be moving on to the session of building the vector database. So the idea behind the vector database is going to be like this. What you're trying to do for the vector database is we will make it this way. We are going to, this is how it works. We have our test. We're going to pass a transformer model on it to convert them to word embeddings, and then we will move on from here and then get whatever we are getting. We're going to create a collection, right? And then, yeah, let's make it this way. We're going to get the word embeddings and put them inside a collection, and this collection is going to be inside our vector database, right? So, and then we can search. So the collection will take the vectors, and then also going to take some data, which we call data, and then payload, so that we'll be able to reconstruct what is there. That's the basic idea. So that is what. So we are going to get the collection. So to take the vectors, some data and payload, and to be stored inside the vector database, and then we'll search via the vector database to get our recommendation. So let's see how to do that. So to implement it, I'll just close this, and then let's close all that we have done, and then move on to our views, and we need to create an endpoint for that. So let's go to dev recommend, right? Recommend view. Then this is going to take in request, and this, like we did above here, we will have something similar. So let me copy this to save us time. And this is not going to take a course, it's only going to take in some form, right? And then we will call it as recommend. So we need to create this one. So it's not going to take a course. What it's going to take is that it's going to take in a form that you want to search by. Right, that's what it's going to do. So we need to create that particular form. So how do we do that? So I'll go back to the same place here. Then I'll create another file, not inside the customizers, not inside here, not inside template, but in the same location as my views, which creates my forms.py. Then this is going to be, so from Django, we want to create my forms, which will be used for the vector database to import forms. And this, I'll call that class recommender form, which we'll take my forms.form from Django, and then I'll call it as my search term, which will be my forms.character field. And this takes a maximum length of, let's give it like 200, not too much. Right, that is all. You can add some stuff to it. So this is a simple form you're creating. I'll go back and then I'll import. So from .forms import forms. So from .forms import recommender forms. Recommender forms. So why is this failing? So I think the reason it's failing is because of the location. I have to put it here. I have to put it here. Yeah, now it's working. So we have recommender form, and now I'll use the recommender form here rather. So that is what you're trying to do. So the recommender form will be here. So I'm going to say that, okay, if request.method is equal to post, right, create my form, and then whatever the form is there, I want you to pick the data that is coming from my request. So request.post via the post method. Then if the form is valid, I want you to retrieve the search term, whatever the person is going to search for. So when we do that with form.clean data, then it takes in my search term, and then we will do our processing with, we will send, what we're going to do, that we're going to send this term, or we will first say we will vectorize the search term, and then we will search the VectorDB, and then make recommendations and get recommendations, something like that. Right, that is it. That's what you'll be doing, and then whatever is going to be returned, we are going to return it to the user. So let's go, that's my context. The context is going to be the result, and whatever result that is coming from. So let's go to search term, but this is an example, and then the actual form. And let's also send a search term. Perfect. Else, if, then we are going to return render. We will do the same thing we did here. We will just go back with this option here. Yeah, we can do it like this, and this is going to work. Or we can say else, if it fails, everything fails, get the form, get the recommender form without nothing, and return it. Right, so this is how to work with our recommendation form. So I'll go back and create this recommended template inside my templates here. Let's create it called recommended.html. HTML5, and this one will take in the search term. So let's put in my div, my form, and the method is post, right, and then it's going to take the search, no, it's going to take the form, right, as paragraph. Then we need some button. The button is going to be recommend. So type is submit, and then we can now tell the user, so h1, so we can say p tag, so you are showing results or recommendation for, so this is going to be the search term, and then you pass in the result, so whatever the result was. Perfect. Let's go back and connect our template to our URL. And how do we do that? The same way we did here. So I'll just copy this to save us time, and this is going to be my recommend. I can't spell recommend, and this will go with the recommender view. So recommender, I don't know why it's not coming. Yeah, and then we'll call it as recommend. So let's save it. Let's go back to our application. Everything is working, and if I change the endpoint to recommend, we are having format speed. Did you forget to register or load this tag? So why is it giving us that? So the reason it's giving us this is because we forgot to load it, right? Format P is because of how we are rendering it. It's supposed to be rendered in this format with the ginger, not with the statement. That's why I said invalid syntax, we forgot to register, and now voila, we have our search term. So if I search for something, artificial intelligence, constantly intelligent, we have this error, forbidden. Why is it forbidden? Because we are sending it via post, and you want to make sure that we are safe against cross-site request forgery. So Django is saying that we have to fit it by passing in this here inside our form. So I'll paste it inside my form, and then if I refresh, so let's go back here, refresh the entire stuff. Let's try it again. Constantly intelligence or machine buchine. Variety here, so that we have it here, right? Perfect. So as the search works, let's move on to the getting the text, transforming it, creating the word embeddings. All of them will be done via quadrant. So I'll go back. We are done with most of the basic part of the app. So let's see with the recommendation, how is it going to be? So I'll do that in the next session because it seems the video is getting too long. So thank you for watching. So in the next session, we're trying to see how to build a simple recommendation system with the VectorDB, right, from scratch. So thank you for watching. See you another time. See you in the next video. Bye.